should be good. Good morning, everybody. I think this is working. Perhaps not. I'm not really sure. But
it's not live on my end.
It's not? Well, there should...
No, hang on. There's a delay. Yep, it's just gone live now.
I was going to say, there should be a delay.
Yeah.
Okay. And...
It's live now.
All right. Yeah. There we go. So anyways, as we get through the hiccup here, set it up. Okay, yeah, I should have taken care of all this a little bit sooner in the morning, but you know, here it is. Welcome to the Impractical Blacksmiths morning chat, morning chat. Good morning, chat. Oh, I am struggling today. In the chat today, we've got Trail Dust 55. Good morning, Kevin. Dragonstone Gym and Ironworks. Daniel Crawford. Good morning. Deranged Metalworks. What was that? I saw David. Good morning. And who else? Henry Street Forge, I guess. That's all I see in there. And the lurkers. I'm sure Tim is in there somewhere. Morning, everybody. Yamez could not be here today because he's doing Mother's Day stuff. I always knew he would make a great mom. And other than that, I think it's a standard Sunday. This is a lot to do in production on the backside, as well as I'm used to just being able to sit here and talk, and now I'm just having to click, move. I'm a little out of sorts, so let me just go kick it over to you, Adam, and say, how was your fortnight while I try to get everything in one spot so I don't have to be moving it around.
Fair enough. Hello everyone, let's take it over the chat. G'day Kevin, g'day Crawford, good to see you. David from Deranged Metalwork, thank you for joining us. Jack Pines, Tim, not lurking, I see you say hello. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon and good night, depending on where you are in the world. And yeah, this is never really here. That's true. Like as Alexa said, Yamez has Mother's Day stuff, of course. So he's out taking care of his mother, of course. For me, it's 12:30 a.m. on the day after Mother's Day. But for me, I actually have a kind of triple whammy for Mother's Day, or depending on the year, because if Mother's Day falls on the 11th, that's my wife's birthday and my brother's birthday. So depending on where, it seems as though we've got an echo. I can't hear it. But yeah, no, depending on where.
Okay, yeah, hold on.
Yep.
Alright, let me see here. Echoes fancy audio. Okay, so I can fix that. You go ahead and I'll fix the echo in route here.
Yep. Just you chat, let us know when the echo stops. Wife's and brother's birthday, and also it was Mother's Day this year. So unfortunately, so I'm lucky enough that I've got two mothers. I've got my biological mother, and she lives in Queensland, so she's a state away. She's 5-hour flight away. And then my stepmom, which is my dad's wife, and she helped raise me from the age of about 10. So, and unfortunately, her and my father were both feeling not too great this weekend, so we've foregone the celebration with her today because she wasn't feeling that great. So, she don't want to spread it, all that type of thing. So, in a fortnight's time, in 2 weeks, it's actually my dad's birthday. So we're going to have a joint birthday, Mother's Day celebration with them, taking out dinner, all that type of thing, in 2 weeks' time. So today I just got to focus on my wife. And she did it. She's a yoga teacher, so this morning she had a free yoga class for a couple of the mothers in my area, and had cupcakes and flowers and all that type of thing, and the ladies really loved that. And then she came home, had a chilled out day. Of course, I'm on changeover, so I had a bit of a nap. And then I took her out for Indian, a meal tonight. So she's now in bed asleep, and of course I'm on changeover. And I'll have this show, which is why I'm up with you, all you lovely people. But yeah, so, and then I was also fortunate enough, my brother lives in the UK. I tried to call him earlier on today, and he actually had gone out to a Ministry of Sound gig last night, so he was moderately hungover and tired this morning, so when it was morning for him, which was about lunchtime for me, and so I spoke to him this evening, and caught up because he was recently actually in the US. My brother attended Coachella and then went to Vegas, so and then he's been back in the UK for a couple of weeks now. But basically it's just catching up with him, saying g'day, seeing how his life's going, and wishing him a happy birthday. As for what's going on in the last few weeks for me, it's been a lot of, because now that the ground's drying out and the wet season's over, it's been a lot of pre-fire prep. I've been clearing my boundaries, made a good effort on clearing the boundaries, and also I'm trying to get around my workshop cleared out, because believe I told you guys last year, had a major fire come through, but my boundaries have to be 15 metres wide, which is what, 15 times 3, 10, 30, 5 times 3, 15, so about 45 feet. My boundary, my fire breaks have to be around my block. So the front, 10 acres, I'm trying to get, which is up to my workshop. I'm trying to get the boundaries starting up to the 15 metres, so that I can burn the front of my block. And that way the fire risk is reduced going into the year. And that way I get rid of the fuel load and all that type of stuff. So I don't have happen this year what happened last year, where I had a major fire come through and burn everything out. Luckily I didn't lose everything, but so it's basically just been me bouncing around the tractor. My lower back's a little bit achy, because as anyone who's spent a decent amount of time on a tractor knows, that there's bugger all suspension in those things. So bouncing around, and I've got a front bucket on mine as well, so moving dirt and moving logs and trying not to destroy anything, and fixed. Okay, cool, awesome. So it's just been a lot of getting stuff prepped. I've still got the sheds and everything to build. Workshop's built, but I've got a little bit of earth moving and stuff to do to just get that up and running to a point where I can actually do some work in it. I am absolutely itching to get back into actually forging anything, because I'm itching. It's been far too long since I actually had a decent swing of a hammer. Simply because, as everyone knows, life sometimes gets in the way. We've all, at some stage, one of us, we've had to take a step back from doing the thing that we loved in order to, do the things that we need to do. That's kind of what I've had to do, in order to get, things up and running, to make sure everything's safe, and also by getting on top of these things now, because I've only had the tractor since the mid last year, it's going to make doing this into the future a lot faster, a lot quicker, a lot easier, because it's already prepped. I'm doing the hard work now, and like the end of last year, I cleared and prepped one section of my fire break. It was about 100 odd meters long, which is about 300 feet, or 200 meters long, so about 600 feet. So I did that last year, and when it come to slashing it and getting it prepared this year, it took me all of 20 minutes. Like, it was up and down, up and down, up and down, done. It was sweet. So now that I've got the other section done, I'm getting the other 200 odd meters, and then I'm doing the front of the driveway and the front of the block and stuff like that. When it comes round to next season to do it, it'll all be prepped nice and quick. It'll just be a matter of actually whacking the slasher on and going and doing it, which then frees up more time for me. So it's time consuming at the moment, but it's one of those. There's a lot. I found that there's a lot in life that people put off because it's going to take so long. Whereas if they just knuckled down and did the thing now, it would save time later on. It's kind of like the boot theory of economics. Sometimes something costs a little bit more up front, but will last longer. Whereas if you go the cheaper option up front, it's going to cost you more over time. It's one of those weird dichotomies. So, yeah, basically, like I said, just been focusing on getting things done here, getting things sorted, getting things prepped, so I can go full speed ahead for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
What about you, Alexis? How's your fortnight been?
How's my audio? Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, you're a little bit tinny. Probably turn up your audio a little bit.
Let me see. I don't know if I can. I'm all the way up. Test. No, I am kind of low. And I am all the way up. So block volume. Let's see. Okay, wait. You're in the chat. How am I sounding in the chat? Because it may not come across the same as it is on Discord. Let me slide over to Discord and check my audio levels here. User volume is right there, 98%. I can actually move you up just a little bit, 112. And let me check mine. User settings. Nope. That's not what I want. Never mind. Okay. I think. What did I do? Discord. What the fuck? Over?
Over?
There we are. No, I like you were gone, and I was just like, what did I do? Yeah.
No, I'm still here. I was just waiting for you to finish.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, all right. This is the best I got. Damn it. All right. There's that, and I can't really do anything else about the rest of it. So, let me move this back. I got to reset all of my windows over the top of each other in the right order. There we go. Okay. So, anyways, what was I?
Your fortnight. How's your fortnight?
Oh yeah. So my fortnight was really shitty. Really, these 1 day and 2 day work weeks are just kicking my ass. Not in the fact that like it's hard. Well, I mean, it is kind of hard sitting around. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm eventually unemployed, but sitting around doing nothing just sucks. I feel like on a daily basis I have no direction and no purpose. Especially when it goes on like 4 or 5 days without having a job, and it's just like, and I'm just sitting here just pulling my hair out. Like, I need something. I need to have a purpose. I need to be constructive. I need to be doing something. And there's just nothing I can freaking do. Like nothing. And it's really been frustrating. And I've had a couple, mental health days that were just not good for me this week. Just out of that not having anything to do kind of thing. And then it's like I get a dispatch and I'm like, oh, thank God I've got a dispatch. I mean, like it saves my whole week when I get a dispatch. And it's, last week I worked 2 days. No, I worked 1 day last week. This week I've worked 3. So, I mean, it's on top of not actually making any money and getting any headway there. It's also the whole I hate not doing anything thing. So there's that. I've got a couple side projects that I was working on as far as getting things boxed up and whatever, and that is all done and complete. And like I said, I'm at the end of that path, and now I'm just sitting here waiting around and crossing my fingers, hoping for another rig move here, another rig move there. And that's it. I've got some things going on in my personal life that I don't really want to get into on here, but they're looking up and promising. Um, what the hell else? Oh yeah, well, there's also a thing we get to look forward to is OPEC increased oil production by 400,000 barrels a day, and they're going to continue to do that every month for the foreseeable future. Every month they're going to increase by another almost 500,000 barrels. So last week that dropped the price of oil down to about $3 below profitability levels, and I'm assuming by the end of the quarter it's probably going to be around $40, something like that, which is great for gas price. Well, it will marginally affect gas prices because at the end of the day, it still costs a lot of money to refine gas. But as far as price of oil goes, I'm of the mindset that we're going to be stacking every rig in the country over the next few months and waiting out another crash. So that's always promising because there's a lot of money to be made in stacking rigs and then bringing them back out. But industry experts are estimating it's going to be like 3 years before they start bringing the rigs back out. So, ugh. It's a good time. It's consequently a good time to get out of the oil field. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sad to be missing the money on the stack out month or 2 months or whatever. But I'm glad I'm not going to be sitting here on unemployment for the next 3 years. Anyways, that's my 2 weeks. It's basically sitting around doing nothing and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's my life for the last basically month, really, because it's been a long time since I've had a busy week. 4 or 5 weeks since I put in a 100-hour work week, and yeah, this last weekend it's like, well, yesterday we had 5 rig moves going on at the same time. I can only be on one of those, and then there's 2 for the rest of the week, and I might or might not be on either one of those. And it's like if those 5 rig moves had just kind of spread themselves out, I'd been busy all week. But no, they all got to go on the same damn day, But what can you do? When they're done digging a hole, they're done digging a hole. So.
So that just reminds me of the many people probably wouldn't have seen the movie, but it's an Australian classic called The Castle.
Oh yeah,
and one of the first lines in the movie, is a young fella coming in going, "Dad, I dug a hole."
Dude, that movie is awesome. Man. What do you mean a busy week? She's dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yep.
I was even talking to Claire about it, and she's like, I can't watch that movie again, and I'm just like, why? And she's like, oh, well, they had us watch it in school, and she's like, I don't want to watch it again because I'm afraid it might ruin it. She's like, I think the movie was great, and I'm afraid if I watch it again, I won't like it as much. I was like, all right, well, fair enough. I've only ever seen it the one time when Adam recommended it to me, and I freaking loved it.
Yep. No. So for those of you that don't know, The Castle is an Australian film about, the basic premise is there's a family that owns a house next to a major airport, and the airport wants to expand, and they try to use a whole heap of different tactics to coerce, bully, kick out this family. And they're an average middle-class Australian family, and they live in a neighborhood of all different sorts of characters, and it's basically the escapades that this family and their local neighborhood do. Now, I was actually on Reddit the other day, it's called r/Ask an Australian, and there was someone that was looking on coming to Australia, and they said, what other movies that need to be watched that would kind of give a good overview of Australian culture? Because you guys know me, you speak to me, and you kind of got my gist, but Australian culture is a thing, and The Castle was probably one of the most recommended movies because it really is a good representation of middle class Australian average people. You know, they're not fancy. They're probably a little bit on the bogan side. They're unique and weird and and funny and a little bit dark. You know, like for example, one of the children of the main family, he's not a child himself, he's an adult, but he's in prison for a stupid mistake that he made. And you know, there's scenes where the family goes and visits him in prison. And you know, he's remorseful for what he did, but he understands that's why he's in jail. Then there's another character which is the boyfriend of the daughter, and he's has an Italian Australian heritage, but he's just come back from Thailand after doing a kickboxing holiday. And like, it's just weirdly and unique, weirdly and uniquely Australian. One of the another example is one of the neighbors. I think he's Serbian or something, and you know, that his most famous line in the movie is, "I come to Australia when planes fly overhead, they drop places. In Serbia, they drop bomb. I like Australia better."
Yep.
So, you know, it's just one of those weird Australianisms that's just funny. And so yeah, it's a classic movie, and I recommend to anyone that hasn't watched it, if you've got a little bit of a darker sense of humor, and like just weird middle class comedy,
It's like
check it out. I mean,
it's
go
like
ahead.
it's like $3 to rent it on Prime.
Yeah, and it's a good laugh.
It really
You
is.
know, and
That's Serenity.
the Serenity. And
uh,
again, if you watch it, you'll understand. And also, like, a lot of the places that they reference in this movie are real places. Like there's a
Bonnie
place
Doon.
that they go and visit, which is Bonnie Doon, and Bonnie Doon actually exists. And it is a lake, and well, it's a water reservoir, and also it's a country area that surrounds the water reservoir. And you know, it goes through droughts and the water level really drops and all that type of thing. So like, the issues that they have in that movie are real Australian issues. So my video feed,
I
something's
got you
happened to
back.
video feed. Just okay, cool. So yeah, so like I said, I recommend, like, any of you that. And like, another weird thing about that movie, and it's uniquely Australian, is that movie actually legitimately changed the way Australian law is practiced. And because there's a line in the movie, because like I said, it's about this conglomerate trying to expand their airport, and the lawyer that represents them is not the best lawyer on the planet, but he's the best lawyer that they could afford. And anyway, they're talking about a legal idea and like the whole a man's home in his castle and all that type of thing. And there's a line in it that goes, you know, it's the thought, it's the feeling, it's the vibe of the law, and that actually became a legit legal precedent in Australian law, where you can actually quote the vibe. It's the meaning, the base. It's not just the words as they're written. It's the expanded meaning of why that law was created. It's the vibe, and you can use that. And I've seen it in person used in court, and it's now a legitimate thing. So yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. And yeah, I recommend, if there's any Aussie movie you watch The Castle.
Yeah, and it only took me half the show to get all of my windows layered properly, so that it doesn't. Because if I leave the Discord in the background too long, it stops getting your video to the OBS. I don't know why. So
Right.
I've got you, and then I've got OBS, and I've got the chat pop out, and I finally got everything where it needs to be, and so now we can start the show.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yay!
yeah, no, I agree.
Just
I watched The Castle, and I loved every bit of it, especially the fact that, well, not every bit. I mean, it was really good, albeit a little bit dated, I mean, because it is an older movie, but
Yeah.
Like just the way that the dad is like what are you adding additions onto the house, and it's all like pieces of random tubing zip tied and duct taped together with tarps over it and stuff like, oh yeah, that's the new addition, and it's and it's like that's some shit
Yep.
my dad would have done growing up, like, oh no, we'll just
Hmm.
we'll just throw up a couple pieces of pipe and a tarp, and we'll call it the porch.
Yep. Yep. No, I really thought you would have loved the gates part.
Oh, the Gates was amazing. I love that. Yeah, 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 yeah. And the cop shows up and he's
And-
like, "Hey, do you know anything about this?" He's like, "Nope, don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "Well, maybe you ought to put those gates around the back then."
yeah.
Uh,
And that, if you want to get that reference, chat, go watch the movie.
yep.
Right? You will love that that is community justice at its best.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was a little bit quicker than the usual. How was your fortnight? Because we don't have Yames to ramble on for so long. I did warn him. I did warn him that he's not going to be here. Is going to bag the heck out of him. But yeah. So yeah. So we don't exactly have a topic today. Simply because it was kind of last minute. But I did want to say, Alexis, to any of the wives that might be listening, or to any of the dads that are out there being single dads, I wanted to say Happy Mother's Day. I hope you have or have had a wonderful day, depending on where you are in the world, of course. Today I was actually up until just before the stream when I was chatting to Alexis and Yames. I actually thought that you guys celebrated Mother's Day on a different day. It turns out it's only Father's Day that you celebrate on a different day. But yeah, no. So I was going to send out a message earlier on today to wishing Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and single fathers out there as well. But I figured I only just learned that you guys do celebrate Mother's Day on the same day. So happy Mother's Day to all of you out there. Happy birthday to people who actually also share the 11th of May as their birthday as well, because I found out that several people that I am at least 1 degree separated from, if not directly connected to, all share the 11th of May as their birthday. Too many people have that birthday. But yeah. So,
yeah, it's
happy birthday and happy Mother's Day.
oh, thank you, Yames. Thanks, Adam.
I'm better looking than he is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, what is it? My oldest daughter's birthday is on Father's Day in America this year, the 15th. My youngest daughter's birthday is today, the 11th, the same as Mother's Day. And let's see, my middle daughter was the 11th of last month, and then the only other birthday that I think is coincides with anything is like my late sister's birthday was Insurrection Day, but uh, other than that, but yeah. Oh, and it's your wife's birthday, right? Yesterday or on the 11th?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the 11th. Yeah. Yeah. And my brothers.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
there's a lot of people born today / yesterday, depending on what side of the date line you're on.
Hmm. That's it. So yeah. So in honor of that, I've actually brought up so on my, because I'm lucky enough to have 2 screens. On my other screen, I've actually brought up the Blacksmith and the Wheelwright volume. So it's the May 1908 edition. So Blacksmith and the Wheelwright is the book. It's a magazine for which a lot of the information for practical blacksmithing came from, and of course edited by M.T. Richardson, the guy that put together Practical Blacksmithing, the original, not the one I annotated. Well, he put together the one I annotated. Well, I just reshuffled it. So I thought I'd read a couple of articles out of the May one for 2 reasons. One, to just give you an idea of what they were talking about, 130 odd years ago. but also 120 odd years ago, but also just to show some of the issues that they were facing back then are still exactly the same today. Right. So this is from a G.W. Bigelow from California, and of course this is like writing to the editor. But he stated, "I enclose $1. Please send the blacksmith and wheelwright. I am in my 79th year, but I cannot get along very well without the help in the shop, and the blacksmith and wheelwright is the best help I've ever had." And the editor says, "Note, we commend the opinion of this veteran blacksmith to the attention of some of the younger generation of blacksmiths who think they have already learned all there is to be learned about the trade. It reminds us of the story of the man who had 6 sons. He said, as each boy grew up to his 17th and 18th year, that they never took advice from their father. In fact, would scarcely listen when the old man talked. When a boy had reached the age of 25, he would sometimes indulgently pay little attention to his father's words. After he had passed 30, he was generally willing to listen to whatever his father had said, and when he reached 40, he never did anything without getting the old man's advice. It is the same with the young men everywhere. The most of them know more at 20 than they will be sure of knowing it if they ever reach 50. and so that's a kind of a little story that 18 to 20-year-old 20-somethings know everything, and as you get older, the less you realise you know, and that is so true even to today. So I thought that was a funny little anecdote for you. That goes back 120 odd years. That shows the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, that tracks. I know. I know. When I was that age, I knew everything.
Yep. Yeah. No, I knew everything when I was in my 20s too. I'm realizing just how much I don't know now.
Yeah, that's something. Something that happened to me. Was it yesterday or the day before? I don't remember. I just opened up Facebook, and I don't know what happens, but I on my phone, it's easy enough to open Facebook. I click on the little notifications thing. I look at my notifications and I interact with those if necessary, or if not, I just swipe on out and go do something else. But on my PC, when I open Facebook and I go to the notifications and then, I look at them or whatever, and then I just, because maybe it has to do with the way it opens because it's kind of like a side window or whatever, and then I just wind up scrolling. And it's like, and it'll be like 5 minutes before I realize I've been scrolling through my Facebook feed for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here. I'm getting stuck in a rabbit hole. I don't like doing that on Facebook. I don't like doom scrolling Facebook because interacting with posts or whatever changes, the whole dynamic of my feed, and I don't want to do that. And with Facebook, if you stop scrolling on a post long enough, it counts as interacting with it. Like, so if I stop to read something, and then, I don't want to accidentally get a bunch of, how do I put this, inflammatory content that is designed to invoke an emotional response in me. I don't want that stuff populating my feed. And so I'll be sitting here and then, well, the point is, a couple days ago, Matthew Hobbs posted something about a conversation with his daughter concerning how much energy is in a pound of a human. And I was like, and his I don't know where he got his numbers from, but like 10 megatons. I was like, that can't be right. I mean, knowing energy measurement, and I'm like, okay, wait, let me figure this out. And so I start like breaking down all the elements in the human body, and how much energy can be released when they're reacted with other elements in the human body. And I'm like, no, I've got, and then I literally spent an hour and a half sitting here doing math and converting energy from one unit to another unit, like calories to joules, joules to megaton, and back and forth. And I'm like, the human, a pound of human flesh contains less energy than is released in 10 revolutions of a V8 engine. So I mean, it's about the same actually, because it's 468 kilojoules in a revolution or in a pound of human flesh, and then it's like 500 0.16 kilojoules in 10 RPM
But does
or
that
10
count if you
revolutions.
split the atom?
Huh? You can't.
I
Well,
said, does that count if you split the atom?
but atoms that small can't be split really.
I, I'm kidding. I'm just
Oh,
it's I again it comes from another old a very old and very dated Australian movie, Young Einstein, where he splits the atom. Just, yeah, an Australianized Albert Einstein, and he
yeah, yeah,
splits the
yeah.
atom to put bubbles in beer,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
ended
Yeah,
up
yeah.
blowing himself up.
Uh,
That's a really really dated movie. Oh my god, it was terrible.
that's kind of like it ranks right up there with the Pauly Shore movies, like Biodome and
It
like
does, yeah. I
where
believe it was around the same time.
yes, it was. Where
Yeah,
you, oh, I can't even do the Pauly Shore-isms. That if I hear them, I remember them from the movies, like
yeah,
But uh,
yeah. We's a magic ooze,
yeah,
buddy.
the weasel.
Yep,
Oh gosh, and now that is so cringe, but he still does that same shtick,
yep,
like Pauly Shore still has that same shtick, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's almost as bad or as Bobcat Goldthwait, and sticking with that whole shtick, and it's just like, it was funny at one time, like in the mid '80s, and then it just kind of got cringe at some point, and it's like, he should really give that up.
yep, yeah. Well, I mean, like the only two movies that I remember from that dude, I can't even remember his real name, but it's there was Young Einstein and Reckless Kelly,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, and both of them are really dated. Like I wouldn't even call them D grade movies, right? They are low budget. Mm, they're good. They are good stoners movies. Like if you want to switch your brain off and just they're good for that. But
They
and
were
mildly entertaining. But
they were good when they came out, but
yes,
but now, I mean, it's like, but I mean, if you think about it, things, the way writing changes over the years. I mean, you look at shows that were popular back in the day, something like All in the Family. That's probably way before your time there, Adam. But I mean, like at the time, that was like a big hit show, and now if you watch it, you're just like, oh my God, this is so bad. Or and lots of other shows that like when I was a kid, I think my favorite shows were like Airwolf and Knight Rider and MacGyver, and those were really good shows then. But if you try to watch them now, you're like, oh my God, this is so horrible. Like the writing was just shit. But at the time, it was good writing, and but by today's
yeah,
standards, it doesn't hold up.
yep, that's true. But yeah, so now to go to a different article in uh, the Blacksmith and Wheelwright from May 1908. It's actually a response letter. So from J.O. Hesse, Missouri. In answer to Brother William C. Cronquest in regard to the proper height of a bench and vice. I'll say every man has his measurements on his person. Height of bench from floor to wrist, height of vice from floor to elbow. This means the top of the vice jaws. Now, common practice has resulted in almost a standard for a bench to be of 2 feet and 8 inches, and for a vice 8 inches higher, or 3 feet 4 inches from the floor to the top of the jaws. Now, having these measurements, it is easy to determine the collar at the bottom of the leg vice will come. So that's for setting up the height of a leg vice and a bench. You know, at towards the end of the popular or the common use of blacksmithing. Sorry, I seem to have something in my eye. It started watering all of a sudden. But
That's something I found interesting. That yeah, I've got three post vices, and until like last week, I didn't realize that they're all exactly the same length. From the jaws to the bottom of the post, I mean, I've got a 4-inch one, I've got a 4.5 inch, and I've got a 6 inch. and they're all the exact same length. And like when they're laying in the back of my truck, because of the size difference of the top of them, they just for some reason they look like they're a different length. But then when you stack them, they're all exactly the same length. And I was worried because of the way of what I was doing with them. I was worried I was going to have to trim like 6 inches off the bottom of each one and then figure out how to put that 6 inches back on it later. But no, I wound up getting things to fit sideways, and yeah, it all worked out. But I didn't realize they were all the same length, so that must be like a universal thing.
Yeah. But look, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's a quote unquote standard measurement, But I mean, as it's described, like your bench, is to the floor to the wrist, and the top of your anvil should be floor to elbow, and that's hanging by your side. And even thinking about that, you think that's actually rather a short measurement. But, for example, I'm going to stand up so you guys are going to look at my waist. I've got a little bit of a colourful bottoms on at the moment. But let me just angle this
Yeah, you are a
down
colorful
slightly.
bottom.
Yep. But like my desk, for example, right, is probably, like my computer desk is probably maybe 2 inches shorter than what a workbench should be according to those measurements. And yes, if I was doing, if I was using this as a bench, this would be too low.
Wait.
So like using that, when you're trying to envision, okay, to your wrist, a lot of people envisage that being shorter than it actually is. So, that comfortable working height of to the wrist is actually a really good measurement, And then again, to the elbow, if you're standing there with your elbow by your side, you got to remember that's to the bottom of your ribs, basically. So, and that allows you to, particularly when you're filing or something like that, that allows you to have those elbows tucked nice and comfortably, and you're filing at a comfortable height.
Makes
So,
sense.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like when you sit and think about it, like and just trying to envisage it, it seems short. But when you actually stand up and like compare those measurements, it's like, oh yeah, that'd actually be rather comfortable. And of course, that all depends on the height of the individual. So for example, I'm 5'11" or 5'10.5". So for me, that measurement might be an inch or two shorter than someone that's 6 foot, or it's going to be 4 inches, probably 4 inches a little bit shorter, 4 inches shorter than someone that's 6'2". So you've got to take those measurements into account. So if I walked into someone's shop that was 6'2", then I'm going to be working a little bit higher because it's not my comfortable work height. So. And again, that's going to be that difference is going to be rather major for someone that's 7 foot or someone that's 5 foot. So it kind of brings back. Go.
I say a good example of that is me working in John Coffey's shop. When we went to Quad State or whatever, and I go in there to like work in his forge, and literally the top of his anvil is like chest level, like it's right here, and so I'm like trying to work, and it's ridiculous. And so I was actually wound up standing on a railroad tie, a piece of railroad tie, in order to be at a more comfortable height to work. And
How tall is Coffee?
like 6'4", something like that.
Holy crap! I didn't think he was that tall.
Yeah,
Jesus.
he also works with his anvil higher than most people would. So it's like, so instead of being like at knuckle level when you're standing up, his is more like mid arm, like midway up the forearm or something like that for him. So for me, yeah, it's like, chest level. And it was definitely interesting, and to have to be working standing on a piece of railroad tie, and and not having that flexibility to move around. It's like step up on it, do the work, step back down, and because I mean a railroad, I mean that's 10 inches. That gives me 10 inches of height. So that was funny, and that freaking piece of railroad tie that was I'm too close to the camera, but maybe 18 inches long. That thing sat in John's shop for like 3 years, just for me to stand on when I came. Uh, I thought that was hilarious. Just, I mean,
Oh, hang on,
it
wait.
just happened to be there, and I was like, oh, I could stand on that, and then everybody thought it was hilarious that I was standing on it. So
That makes me wonder what tombs he would have been working on. He would have been working on the back end of a forward drive or something.
right.
He wouldn't have been able to see above the level the face of the anvil, would he? I can't bag Toomsy out. He's not here. But yeah, no. But see, this is something that, and the reason why it's kind of pertinent is, the heights of things is something that still gets discussed today. Just like, teenagers knowing everything. The heights you set your stuff up in the workshop, is something that still gets discussed today and was back then. This is 120 odd years ago. 118 years ago. If it was being discussed then, it's still being discussed now. Even to that, there are slight idiosyncrasies in that. For example, for me, what's comfortable for my anvil height, for example, isn't and a lot of books I've read, and many of you know I've read a lot of blacksmithing books, say stand with your arm down by your side and your fist clenched, and that's where the face of the anvil should be. Personally, I disagree. It should be, basically standing at the anvil with your hand relaxed, and these knuckles is where your face of your anvil should be. The reason why I say that is because that way, particularly if you're using the hammer in a relaxed grip, when you swing, you're taking into the account the head of the anvil, at least half of the head of the anvil, which is going to be striking. So that way, when you're at the end of your swing, your hand is this far above the anvil face, and therefore allowing for a square hit from the hammer face onto the whatever work you're using, depending on the type of hammer you use, of course. So that's going to be different if you like Sam Towns, for example, where he, particularly with knife making, he likes his cutlass hammers, so they've got a longer body in the hammerhead. That's going to change the dynamic of how you set up your anvils and all that type of thing, depending on the type of hammers that you use on a frequent basis. Another example of that is if you are a frequent and strong advocate for the Hoffy hammer. The Hoffy hammer has a much shorter body compared to the average rounding hammer or turning hammer. Even the average ball peen, has a longer body than a Hoffy hammer. Hoffy hammer is very squat. So, you can make up that difference in the height of your anvil to ensure that when you strike, it's hitting square, as opposed to, canting either way, which will mar your work and all that type of thing. But it's, this little bit of an article about height of benches and workbenches and stuff like that from people that worked every day in this occupation, in this passion, in this art form, and therefore they've come up with things that worked for them. And that's the reason why, and Crawford did allude to it. The human body, the proper measurement is of one's body, but there's going to be slight differences in each person's comfort. Like working to your elbow level, okay, maybe an inch below your elbow is best for you, because that allows you that relaxation, or the height of the work above the jaws of the vise and stuff like that. So you've got to take into account your own idiosyncrasies when it comes to your working height, and that also you've got to take into account your work boots, because your height barefoot to your wrist is going to be different than your height in work boots to your wrist, and that does change, And so if you're measuring that wearing sand shoes, that's going to change when you change to your work boots. So you've got to take that into account as well.
I never considered that because I have a variety of footwear when I'm forging, depending on what I'm doing. Obviously, which range from uh, sandals, Jerusalem cruisers, the little leather like
Yep.
thing between those and 4-inch leather heels that are boots. I mean, like. Um, and it never occurred to me that literally changes my height from the anvil. But yeah, huh. Uh,
Yep.
I mean, it just never occurred to me. And I mean, like if I'm forging stainless or something like or titanium, something that doesn't scale, and I know that's what I'm going to be doing, I'm more apt to just wear sandals because I don't really have to worry about hot shit landing on my feet. But if I'm going to be doing a piece of copper coated ground rod, which is going to have molten copper flying off of it, or some forge welding where there's going to be scale, yeah, I'm wearing pants, I'm wearing boots, and I am not. I'm not a fan of having molten shit splattering on me. So, mm,
Yeah. And see, Jeff makes a good point too. He's 6'4", but he only had the 30-inch inseam. So I'm presuming that's I'm not. I have nothing to do with tailoring
I
or anything like that. So I'm presuming
I'm
that's
I'm
kind of the inner length of his leg.
I'm 5'6" and I've got a 32-inch inseam. So that's yeah. It's
Yeah.
from it's
So
from your it's from your crotch to your ankle.
yeah. So like that's again, your body measurements are going to change the specific heights of your working situation. And of course, again, you're going to adjust that compared to for your specific instances. Like I said, for me, my anvil height set to a relaxed grip because for me that works. That's where my natural swing ends up. Again, and as I just said in chat, I also take from years of martial arts training, when I'm standing in at the anvil, I bend my knees and I'm kind of in, for those that understand boxing and stuff like that, I'm in a fighting type stance, because that way I get the body mechanics of my swing comes naturally. So so I've got the bent knees. So that again, that changes, me standing at the anvil up straight with my hand relaxed, I'm not going to be standing up straight, at attention when I'm forging. I've got the bent knees. I'm stabilized in all the swings. So that brings me down a couple of inches as well. So again, the way you forge will affect, you might set something up, go, okay, this is my heights and la 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 la, and then get to it and realize that's really freaking uncomfortable. So there is a certain amount of experience of your own body in that as well, and how you stand at the anvil. Because like Crawford said, bending over, or sorry, Jack said, standing there hunched for a long period of time isn't exactly a great thing for your back either. So you've got to set that up so that your body works with you over a long period of time.
Yeah, yeah. I got a question. When I set the stream up, I set the stream up to insert ads manually, and did not do that at all. Which I was supposed to do that like every 15 minutes or something like that. Did YouTube automatically drop ads in on you guys where that you had to skip or whatever? I'm just curious if it did or if it just didn't do them at all. Um, other than that, um, I found that
Well,
interesting.
whilst they're
Yeah, yeah. While they're
whilst they're responding to that, why don't you drop an ad in so that we don't have to worry about it?
I can do that. I can do that. I was just looking at that and I was like, oh, I need to fucking drop an ad. All right, I'll drop an ad now. Ads inserted. Wait, why did it say enable monetization to insert ad? This is monetized, unless I don't know. Anyways, it should be going. I don't know. And I've,
Well, I've got premium, so it doesn't give me ads anyway.
yeah, and I'm not watching the stream because I'm actually doing the streaming. So,
Running it. Yep.
uh,
I'm
uh,
just asking chat. See, Jack Pines pays for premium as well not to get ads.
I haven't seen any. So nobody said there was any ads. I don't know. I wonder if I messed up the monetization when I started the stream. I may have. I don't know. Or it maybe we got disqualified too early in the stream because that happens too sometimes. I don't think we did though. I was careful
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't swear either.
Yeah. Ads. What are ads? Right. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, the oh, I was going to mention the whole like Jeff Killian's 6'4" and having a 30-inch inseam. That's something that really I find fascinating because like we would have a similar sized or anvil height, right? Because I mean, where there's only about from the waist area or whatever. I don't know. They're about a 2-inch different, give or take. Whereas in like somebody like Conan O'Brien is 6'5" and has this incredibly short torso with like legs that he's 6'5" and 5 feet of it is his legs, And when you see him walking, Conan O'Brien from a distance, you're like it just looks like freakishly weird because he's all legs. Yeah. And so he would have like a really tall anvil height, even, well, I mean, he's 6 foot and change, anyways, but, being that he's 60% leg.
Yep. That would, yeah, that's.
And
It
then
kind of reminds me of those strange creatures in Tim Burton films.
yes. And like I've seen Conan come on somebody else's show and like hike his pants up and then just like do this like high stepping across the stage and it just looks so weird, like the Tim Burton stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently everybody that watches our show has premium YouTube.
Well, that's good.
I thought I did the free trial thing for a little while, and then I was like, I don't know, $9 a month. The one that gets me is like, so I can deal with a YouTube ad because they're skippable, most of the time, and they don't the ones that aren't skippable don't usually last that long. But what really pisses me off is Spotify because it's like literally you open Spotify, you play a song, you get one song, and then you literally get 5 ads. So you get 3 minutes of
Yep.
advertising, and it says, please enjoy 30 minutes of ad-free listening. And then you get one song, and you get 5 ads again. And it's like, are you freaking, and this is a repetitive thing. It's like 1 or 2 songs, and then you got 3 or 4 minutes of ads. 1 or 2, and it's the same ads every time. So it's not like it's even a variety. You're listening to the same 5 damn ads every 7 minutes. And it just makes me want to throw my phone. I'm just like, ugh, because Spotify is really trying to be irritating enough to get you to pay that $9 a month for premium, And I'm just like, I don't listen to
Yep.
enough music to do that. Because
No.
that doesn't really, when you're listening to a podcast, it doesn't really do that. You'll get a pre-roll ad, maybe one mid-roll, and then one at the end. Whereas with music, it's like every other song is a whole set of ads, and I'm just like, nope. Give me Pandora, because Pandora will literally, for me, it'll go like 45 minutes without an ad. So,
Yep.
do.
So another one,
Oh,
another article out of this that's really pertinent. Sorry, you're about to say something, Alexis?
I was not.
Oh, okay. Another one that's really pertinent. This is another small article. This is from Theo Jirichek from Wisconsin, and it goes, so second, let me get the bit. So I am on a farm and I do all the repairing for my father and lots of my neighbors, mostly on rainy days and at the noon hour. My first anvil was a handleless sad iron, and I now have a 55-pound American anvil and a number 12 Acme post drill and a 96-pound vise, and lots of other tools, many of which I have made myself, and alligator wrenches, screwdrivers, such as alligator wrenches, screwdrivers, drill chuck, etc. I get lots of good points from your valuable paper, and it should be in every blacksmith hands. But this is to say So a sad iron is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong for those of you that are older, but I believe it's a type of like pressing iron, like an iron for ironing your clothes, that was put on the fire and heated up that way. Just a second. Let me double check. Yeah, so it is. It was a clothes iron, that heavy cast iron clothes iron that you put on the stove to heat up. And that was this smith's first anvil, which goes to show that throughout history, people have been using whatever they can get their hands on to start as an anvil and did good work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought, and you see all these forms, and we've all done it, using railway ties, not railway ties, railway line, and my first anvil with a cut up piece of forklift tine, and all different sorts, But just goes to show that, it is a common thing to start with what you have and build up, and making your own tools.
I earlier this week, I opened YouTube, and there was just this right at the top of the not in the, how you get on a PC or whatever, you get the videos in the middle of the screen or whatever, and then you got like a list on the right, and at the top of the list on the right was just this random blacksmith live stream, right? That I'd never heard of or anything like that. It's like Raised Forge, RAIE or RAI. I can't quite remember it. But
Yep.
it's a chick blacksmith. She doesn't look to be that old. It's hard to say, but her YouTube channel is like 11 years old. So I'm like, there's no way she can be that old. But she streams on Twitch and then uploads them to YouTube later on. And for some 168 YouTube subscribers, and for some reason it was a recommended video on my YouTube, and I was like, what? And I went ahead and gave the one that was on there. It was like an hour stream. I went ahead and gave it a watch, and it was fairly no, I wouldn't say entertaining, but it was fun to watch. Entertaining, I guess. But her anvil is like it looks like to me it's a Peter Wright, but I mean it could be anything. It's a classic London pattern, but it's got that real skinny waist on it that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
indicative of a Peter Wright, and the tool steel face is like gone to right where the hardy hole is. So it's like there's the horn, and then there's the tool steel face where the hardy hole is, and then it just drops off like I don't know, maybe 150 mil or half an inch, three quarters of an inch, and then it goes across. And I was just like, whoa, ooh. I was like, that is and I'm looking at the animal for a hot minute trying to figure out what's going on there because it's how you got the over or not on the horn but the tail. I said the horn, it's the tail. But you know how at the horn end you've got the step, the where
Yeah.
you got the little cutting surface on the side by the horn, and then you got the step up to the tool steel face. And yeah, there's no step on that end. It just goes straight across from the horn all the way over to almost to the hardy hole, and then it steps up real quick. And I was just like, dang, that is that is weird looking. And it just and I literally sat there just looking at that anvil the whole time, going, what? But I don't know why that came to mind, but
Was it sway backed?
no, no, it was like the face broke off.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. But she like not to say she hasn't done much work on it, but I mean, like, it couldn't, like, I've seen anvils where the face is broken off and someone's kept using it and it becomes sway backed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, so theoretically, the face has broken off recently, and I don't mean while she's owned it, but it hasn't done much
So
full time work since the face broke.
right, so from the hardy hole, there's probably that much face. So it's like the face, the tool steel top barely extends over the top of the waist. All right, so it's just barely extends over the top of the waist. So you're not if you're forging on the tool what's left of the tool steel face, you're not off the end of the anvil. You're still kind of just barely on the edge of the waist, so it's not going to cause an issue there. And I didn't notice because the stream I watched, she spent a lot of time doing other stuff rather than heating and beating. And so I didn't really notice where she worked at on the anvil, whether it was on the, because the whole time she had one of those, you know how you got like a bolster plate or whatever for cutting, or a cutting plate?
Yeah.
Oftentimes I use a small aluminum plate for a cutting plate if I'm going to be, if I need to use one, or I will just go to the cutting deck or whatever. But the whole time that I was watching her, she had this like cutting plate on over the top of the wrought iron part of the face. And so I didn't even notice if she forged on the wrought or if she forged on the tool steel. But um,
Mhm.
for some reason, yeah, that just popped into my mind. And
Yeah.
it was interesting to see her passion for blacksmithing at, uh, and be so um, what's the word?
Yeah.
Like really into it and trying to be educational. I found that to be endearing and like, you go, girl. Yeah,
Yeah. So just for reference, that's a sad iron.
yeah,
For
yeah,
those
yeah,
of you that didn't, yeah. And most of you probably would have got the idea, but apparently, and so I looked it up because we're all making jokes about why it's called a sad iron, but sad because in Middle English, sad meant solid. So because they were made of solid cast iron, a sad iron, solid iron. But they also have a very bit of a challenging history because a lot of people got injured whilst using them. A lot of women, particularly. Um, but yeah, so anyway, interesting history. But that's a sad iron.
yeah.
You know?
I used to have a couple of those. I found them
Yeah.
at an old ironworks when I was a kid. There was an old abandoned ironworks near my home. Well, I mean near, as in like it was like a 2 mile bike ride. And we used to dig through there all the time. We found cannons and cannonballs and sad irons and little cast iron figurines of stuff that were, they just, I don't know what the hell was going on with all that, but we toted home all kinds of different cast iron stuff, that they made at that Western Iron Works that had been there since I guess since the beginning of the town, really, and then it moved to the other side of town at some point in time, and so by the 80s, it was well abandoned, and in the basement there was a stack of cannons that was probably 10 feet long, 2 feet tall, and it's just like, well, I mean, the length of a cannon. I mean, they're like 4.5, 5 feet long, and I mean, there's just this
Mhm.
whole row of cannons laying there, and there's like, damn. And all of us as kids, we all wanted a cannon. We all wanted to tote a cannon home, but we couldn't move the damn things. I mean, like we would even like tow a wagon behind our bicycles and to tote home the stuff we were taking out of this old abandoned stealing out of this old Western Ironworks building. And the very top level was a big warehouse full of files, like paper files, boxes and boxes of paper files. And we rooted around all in there, and that's where we found like the sad irons and the little cast iron dogs and figurines and whatnot. And then the cannons were underneath. With lots of other larger equipment that we had no idea what was at the time. But we were all like, we've got to figure out how to get a cannon out of here. And we never did. We were never able to even move one because they're 4.5, 5 feet long, and they're, 10 inches in diameter or something like that with a 2 inch bore. So I mean, like they're, the bore on those things is literally that big. We even had cannonballs. We each had some cannonballs that fit the bore on those and that we found there. And it was sad that we were never able to get a cannon out of there. And then it's at one point we were making a trip to go over to go do some more digging, and somebody had started a fire inside the building on top with all the files in it. And I mean, it was a lot of paper. There was a lot of paper in there, and that whole thing went up. And I was at my friend's house that lived maybe a quarter mile away, and we saw that. I got there and I saw, obviously I saw the smoke as I was riding up, and I was like, no. no, it's burning down, and yeah, we sat there and watched it burn and watched the fire department come, and then somebody showed up with dozers and they just flattened the whole area, leveled the whole thing out. So all of those cannons are still buried underneath where that thing was, and I probably to
Well,
this I couldn't find it to this day to tell you the truth. I wouldn't know where it's at. It's been so long ago, but
I was gonna say someone would have a really exciting discovery if they ever decide to build, you know, and they will build a housing development or something
no,
on the top of it.
there could be a development there now. I mean, somebody could have already dug that shit up. I don't even know, because that was, God, I was in sixth grade at the time, so that we're talking about
19,
1988, 88, 89,
I was gonna
19.
say, I was gonna say 1950s.
Yeah. So that it was mid to late 80s when that thing burned down, and it I don't it's next to what used to be the old landfill from the 1800s. So the old landfill was right next door, and the reason we wound up exploring the old Western Iron Works is because we used to go walk around the old landfill. And it's all, smooth level with the ground. It's not like a big hill like we have nowadays. It's like it's all leveled out ground, but we used to go out there and pick up old bottles, like the bottles from the 1800s, like the old Clorox bottles and Castoria bottles and stuff like that have the pearl color to them, and because they sell real good at antique shops and stuff, so we'd go out there and find old bottles, and then one day we're just like, wonder what that building is. Let's hop the fence and go figure it out.
Yep.
But anyways, got way
Yeah.
off the subject. But that's where
And
I found a sad iron. I didn't know it was called a sad iron, but I had three or four of those growing up. We used to use them as doorstops.
yeah, I was gonna say my grandmother had two that were from her parents that she had as doorstops for decades. I think they got appropriated by my cousins when my grandmother passed or sold to antique shops or something like that. But I would love to have them. They were awesome, and 100% reminder of my grandmother. And like when I was growing up, she even showed me how to use them. She had an electric stove, but she put it on the stove, turn up the heating element, and get it nice and hot, and show me, when I was a child, showed me how to use a sad irons. But yeah, and just to reiterate there, Alexis, you weren't stealing from the old ironworks. You were recycling and reappropriating.
Well,
It had been there for God knows how long. So you weren't really stealing. It's not like they had a use for it.
well, no, I mean, and
Yeah.
to be fair, I mean, it wasn't. It's not like anything that we didn't take out of there was just going to get buried in the fire and the subsequent bulldozing of the structure.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know, nobody had been there in decades. Um, but still, I mean, it's one of those things. It's private property and all that shit. But yeah, we're kids. What the we're 13, 14 years old. What do we care about private property?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. Hell, I did that on construction sites when I was growing up, and that's late 90s. So, going through construction sites and knocking off, bits and pieces to make bike jumps and all that type of crap. I reckon they have to have factored that in, particularly when they're building a new thing in suburbia. Yeah, the kids are going to come and raid. That's why they don't leave any of their tools lying around or anything like that. Not that we were ever game enough to knock off anyone's radio or anything like that. That was a bit rich for me growing up, but
Ben says he wishes he was an
definitely.
anvil. He just wants me to hammer on him.
So yeah, but that's pretty much all I've got to talk about. Like we've like apart from reading extra articles, it's really one of those things there. Like I said earlier, the more things change, the more they stay the same. A lot of stuff that I read in the articles today are still issues that we talk about, face, and debate among ourselves. Just shows that there's no real right answer, just what's right for you. Like so. Yeah, it's interesting. 100 years separate, and we're still talking and sharing advice on the same issues.
Oh yeah, but in this craft, it's still topical, you know. And if you're
Yeah.
a new person coming into this craft, it's not like you automatically know it. I mean, it's people like us and other blacksmiths or whatever that share that information. Be like, oh no, you want it this high, you know, or you want it that wide, or you know whatever. So
Yeah. I
it
mean,
it, it will always
here's
be
an
topical.
yeah. I mean, here's another good one. Starting a forge fire. So from Daniel Snook in Michigan. In looking over the pages of Blacksmith and Wheelwright for suggestions of recipes from time to time, I have never noticed a suggestion for starting a fire in the forge. Most everyone starts his fire in his stove with kerosene or coal oil, and the thought came to me, why not start the forge fire the same way? I cleaned out the fireplace and put back the coke coal left from the last fire. Then I poured on 1 or 2 tablespoons of kerosene and lit it, and let it burn for 1/2 minute, and after which I started the blower. And to my surprise, I had a good fire in 1 minute's time, where before I had to cut shavings and use paper, etc., from 10 to 15 minutes in getting the fire started. I have used this method for 6 months and find it one of the most practical methods for saving time and patience I have ever adopted in my business. I don't know if any of you have ever had this argument out about how to start a fire in the forge, you know, and people, you know, unless you start it with paper or wood shavings, it's cheating. It's like, well, here's a smith from 110, 118 years ago that's saying, hey, put a little fuel on it and save time.
I
Wow.
I did
Hey?
that one time with gasoline. I poured just a smidge of gasoline on the coal or whatever, right? And I always put a couple twigs underneath right above the tuyer, you know, just because they'll light a little bit easier. I poured a smidge of gasoline on there, and I didn't turn the blower on at all. And I came over there with the long lighter bit, you know, and I lit that thing. And what I didn't account for was in the like 15, 20 seconds it took me to get there, the gas fumes had dropped down into the blowpipe. And when I lit it, it blew up, blew everything out of the fire pot. And I mean, like, and my garage is corrugated tin, right? And
Yep.
the roof is just bare tin. The walls are insulated with sheetrock, but you know the roof still, it boomed so, it blew so loud. Like my daughter came running out thinking I blew up the shop. Like she was genuinely scared. You know, it was because it sounded like a gunshot went off in the shop, and I was like, no, it's all
Yeah.
good. I just blew everything out of the fire pot with a stoichiometric mixture of gasoline vapor and oxygen, I guess. But I mean, I typically try to, because of that event, I typically try to avoid using liquid accelerants. And so I use the little
Yeah.
propane torch. I just stuff the end of the little propane torch down into the coal, turn
Yep.
the blower on, and walk away. When I
Yeah.
see fire
Well,
coming up out of the top, pull the torch out, we're good. To hell with using paper and all
that
that shit.
yeah, and that makes sense. But I mean, to be fair, I believe kerosene doesn't really have the same type of explosive property. It'd be like using diesel. You know, diesel's kind of the same. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
kerosene is halfway between diesel and gas.
Yeah, so it doesn't really have that vapor, like the fume ignition, as opposed to the you got to heat the fuel, which is why, you know, kerosene's. And see, as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, you guys actually use a lot more kerosene in the kerosene is a lot more common in the US than it is in Australia. Like we can buy it, but we only get it in like 1 liter bottles from the hardware store. It's not a common um, item here in Australia, except for airports where they use it as jet fuel, as we all know.
I was going to bring up, yeah, it's mostly just for blending in to make jet fuel, but
Mm.
there some people run kerosene like the turbo heaters, the
Mhm.
long 4 foot long ones set on the ground. Those often run on kerosene, or they often used to run on kerosene.
Yeah,
Everyone I've ever had, I've just immediately converted it to diesel because diesel's easier to get than kerosene and a lot cheaper. Because I mean, like a five
yeah,
gallon a 5 gallon bucket of kerosene, it costs you $40. You know, I mean, like,
mm,
you know, 5 gallons of diesel costs you 20. Or, you know, I'm just making up numbers, but you know, kerosene is or
yeah,
diesel is half the price, and it just takes a small air adjustment on the heater to convert it to diesel. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. See, when again, this is going back. 20 odd years. When I was growing up, we had the option to buy, because I lived out bush. So for those of you who don't know, I grew up about 150 miles from Darwin City itself, and the closest town was about 50 miles away. So we didn't have mains power, we didn't have mainline telephone, anything like that. Everything from the way I grew up was pretty much off grid. We had our telephone, our landline telephone was actually what we call we had a radio antenna telephone, so it would convert it. We had a whole system that actually worked, right? And we had a mast outside of our house which was like 40 foot high into the air, so it could go above the mountains, all that type of thing. It was proper remote. So we had the option when I was growing up to buy a kerosene fridge. We ended up buying a gas fridge because gas was a hell of a lot easier to get. But we had the option of a kerosene or gas fridge. And at the time, me and my family and I didn't know enough about kerosene. Like you said, now, knowing what I know now, we could have converted it to diesel, which at the time probably would have been cheaper. But we ended up using gas. And so we just had the large 40-pound gas bottles. We had several of them because we used one for a gas stove and we used one for so we had a gas freezer, a gas fridge, and then the regular gas stove. We also had an old wood big oven as well. So like I grew up proper off grid, I know how to live like that. I don't like it. It's a hell of a lot of work to live off grid, I'll tell you what. It is a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah. Everyone that romanticizes off-grid living, yes, it's lovely and romantic, and living out bush where you can sit in complete silence and there's no sound except for the sounds of nature. It's great, but fuck, it's hard work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, like it is nice, but it is a lot of work. I mean, it does add a certain difficulty level to surviving.
Yeah, but I mean, I will give it kudos. I mean, that's part of where my interest in blacksmithing started. So that and this book. So not this book exactly, because I actually had first and second editions of this book. So I'm not sure if it's backwards for you guys, but this is Bushcraft, or this is Bushcraft 1. By a gentleman by the name of Ron Edwards. He's now unfortunately passed, but this is all Australian traditional bushcrafts, and how things were done through Australian colonial period and right up to the 1970s, 1960s in the bush in Australia. And like I said, I had all first and second editions. Because he was a family-owned business and they printed their own books. And I now have the whole set, right up to Bushcraft 10. He's got a whole heap of books. But this was part of my passion for blacksmithing as well, because it was growing up off-grid like I did. I wanted to do things like it was reading books like that and teaching myself and all that type of thing and becoming quasi self-sufficient that led me down to the path of blacksmithing. Also, not being in regular school and not having work, wood shop or metal shop or anything like that. I didn't have access to that, and my dad working with a guy that was an open ticket blacksmith basically. Well, open ticket boilermaker, but he was a classically trained blacksmith. That's what led me to blacksmithing. But that really, growing up like that really sparked my interest. And the reason why I actually got the full series of this at a little bit of a discount, because his daughter and his son-in-law Ron Edwards' son-in-law now maintain the printing of it and everything like that. And I wrote to them, like when I ordered the books, because you send them an email, and I wrote to them and said, look, I used to have all first and second editions, but the family house that I grew up in that was out on that block, someone burnt it down, so they all got destroyed. But I told her my story. She's like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And so I actually ordered the whole series from them in one go. And yeah, lovely people. But yeah, that's really got me into. It was a journey of getting into blacksmithing initially as a bright-eyed 15-year-old who thought he knew everything.
Right?
Mm.
Ah, what do we got? It is. We've got about an hour and a half. Do you think we ought to kick in some final thoughts?
Yeah. I guess I'll go ahead. Final thoughts is, again, bringing it back, just how similar, for all the technology and all the advancements that we've made in the last 150, 120 odd years, just how much of the same conversations we still have. There's human nature is to try to come to a consensus, but everyone's slightly different, so therefore no true consensus will ever be reached. But as long as we accept the differences of each person and work to our strengths, that things generally turn out all right. So basically, it's come whether that's height differences or that we still face the same fundamental challenges today as we faced 150 years ago, 120 years ago. Teenagers knowing it all, the heights of setting things up, and how big a difference that can really make to you just by accepting those small differences in each other. How it can make a major difference to everyone else. And even looking, recognizing the past helps you look forward, in the sense of having access to the Blacksmith and the Wheelwright that was written in May 1908. My country was literally 7 years old. 7 years old in 1908. Australia as a nation was a baby. So that's kind of mind blowing when you put it into perspective like that as well. So sometimes you need to take a step back and look at things from a different angle to really shape to reevaluate where you're coming from and your own perspective. And it's a little bit mind blowing when you do that. So yeah, take a step back, have a look at the thing from a different way. Doesn't matter what challenge, and change your mind. Go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, we're talking about earlier, being young and thinking you know everything, and it's actually kind of ironic because mentally you peak at like 26 years old, and that's just speaking from like the scientific standpoint. People that do their PhDs and people that are physicists and what's that other philosophy and things like that. Like they all of like the big breakthroughs and stuff like tends to happen to people before they hit their 30th birthday. So like that's when you have the most pliable mind and the ability to think outside the box and ask questions that haven't been asked. And so when you're young, you think you know everything, or you think you don't know what question to ask. It's just this interesting thing of the way the mind develops and works, and then it seems like after about 30, it's not necessarily downhill, but you've just kind of by that time you've plateaued, as far as your ability to change the way you think. Uh, and to be okay with it, because like by the time you're 30, most people have gotten into this is the way I'm going to be, and they don't want to change because this is the way they know. And so I don't know why I thought of that, but it just randomly came to me about the whole like peaking in your mid to late 20s, as far as with mental capacity goes. And so while you think you know everything when you're 20, give it 5 more years. By then you know everything. And then 20 years later you realize how wrong you were. So y'all be careful, be safe out there, and if you find yourself in a mental health spot, call a friend. Talk it out, whatever. I know I was there a couple times this week, and luckily I had somebody to talk to kind of center me and tell me, hey, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. You'll be all right. So, because even sometimes even the smallest little things can seem like it's over, when really it's not. So, y'all have a great 2 weeks, and we will see you again. Possibly with Yamez next time. We're considering kicking him out of the friend group because he really
Hostile takeover of his channel.
he really adds no value to the group anymore since he refuses to go out into the shop. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we're hostile takeover of Island Metal Forge. Yeah.
You could nearly call it a pirate takeover. We're committing mutiny, so therefore we become pirates.
Yeah, there you go. Arr. All right, I will see you guys in a couple weeks. Be good and stay safe. And I've got to find the right tab. Bye now.
Button end. Bye.
Wait, I got to stop. Yeah, I forgot. I got to stop this one first.